Underneath South Carolina's sleepy moss-draped oaks and time-worn plantations, shadows move that never left. The state is a graveyard of secrets, and every foggy swamp, crumbling ruin, and storm-battered coastline hides a story most people won't dare to remember. Tonight, we'll drag 12 of South Carolina's most disturbing legends into the light, fusing history with myth, the real with the impossible. These tales come from the dark arteries of Charleston's haunted alleys, from the depths of Gullah folklore, from bloodstained battlefields and lost colonial outposts where reality and nightmare blend until you can't separate them. Old sailors saw them, slaves whispered about them, children grew up afraid of them, and even now, the wise know better than to laugh too loudly at the old stories. Some say the past is dead. South Carolina proves it isn't. If you think you know the South, think again. And at the end, maybe you'll decide for yourself. Are these just tales, or is something ancient still watching us from the dark? Under the thick canopy of the low country, near the tidal creeks of Edisto Island, locals still whisper about the restless figure they call the Gray Man. When the sky turns heavy and the Atlantic wind howls with hurricane force, a pale silhouette appears on deserted beaches, moving against the storm, silent and staring, vanishing just before disaster strikes. The story's roots stretch back to 1822, when a young man, returning to his lover on Pawleys Island, was swallowed by quicksand after a long journey home. Grief and guilt, raw, bottomless, clung to the woman he left behind. Soon after, neighbors claimed to see a gray, mist-shrouded figure pacing outside her house, always before a violent storm. By the late 1800s, the Gray Man was no longer one lover's ghost. He became a warning, an omen. Description is always the same: a faceless man, draped in old-fashioned clothes, barely touching the sand. 1,893, 1,954, 1,989 eyewitnesses all reported the same terror. During Hurricane Hazel, a family saw him and fled. Their house survived, untouched, while neighbors' homes were leveled. Locals still believe if the Gray Man crosses your path, you're being given a chance. But the skeptics call it coincidence, a collective invention to explain survival or loss in a place battered by the elements. Still, each hurricane season, talk of the Gray Man returns. Some islanders keep doors unlocked, as if inviting him in is a ritual of protection. And every year, after the wind and rain have passed, footprints appear in the sand, leading to nowhere, vanishing with the dawn. Is the Gray Man only grief made flesh? Or does he stand between life and ruin? The coast waits for the answer. In the black waters of the Congaree Swamp, a presence stalks the cypress shadows. Locals call it the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp. It's a legend born of fear and mud, where roads buckle and the darkness never truly recedes. The first public panic flared in the brutally hot summer of 1988, when a teenager named Christopher Davis, driving home late, stopped to change a tire. Out of the trees, something emerged, towering, scaled, glowing red eyes, claws scraping the metal as he sped away. By morning, Davis's story spread like wildfire. Others soon reported seeing claw marks in car hoods, crushed bumpers, missing dogs. The creature, they said, stood 7 feet tall, reptilian, part nightmare, part science fiction, green skin, slick as oil, 3-fingered hands, a smell like rotten eggs. The sheriff's office found odd tracks, 3-toed, sunken deep into the muck. Reporters descended on Lee County, drawing crowds and amateur hunters who flooded the swamp with flashlights and guns, chasing shadows. Some say the Lizard Man was a hoax, an alligator, a bear, a kid's lie that spun out of control. Skeptics point to pranksters, the heat, mass hysteria, but older residents shake their heads. They remember strange disappearances from decades earlier. Cattle mutilated, lights flickering in the night. Stories of a swamp demon long predate 1988, passed down quietly, generation to generation, as a warning to keep away from the deepest water. Today, the legend sells t-shirts and draws tourists. But every so often, someone driving the lonely back roads will stop, engine off, and listen to the reeds. The fear isn't gone. In the Congaree, reality is soft, the ground unstable, and something still waits, cold-blooded and patient just beneath the surface. Would you risk a walk in those woods, knowing what might crawl up behind you? Charleston's history is built on the bones of the past, but few stories cut as deep as the tale of Lavender, the ghost bride of the Battery. On rain-slicked nights along East Bay Street, residents have seen her, a pale woman in a tattered lavender dress, drifting near the old seawall, her face hidden behind a faded veil. Sometimes, the scent of crushed violets lingers in the air, cold, unmistakable long after the apparition disappears. The legend roots itself in the 1842, during Charleston's golden age, when a wealthy merchant's daughter was set to wed a young officer. The city buzzed with gossip, the Battery alive with promise. But on the eve of her wedding, a carriage accident claimed her fiancé, leaving her shattered. The next night, unable to bear the grief, she walked to the harbor in her lavender gown and vanished into the mist. Some say she drowned, others insist she simply faded away. Not long after, servants and sailors began reporting a strange figure wandering the Battery, always cloaked in lavender, always moving toward the sea. Eyewitnesses over the decades tell nearly identical tales. In 1902, a dockworker claimed she passed through him, like a chill of death. In 1947, a newlywed couple reported seeing her drifting at dawn, glancing back as if waiting for someone who never arrives. Even today, police field calls from tourists shaken by a fleeting vision, an ethereal bride walking the old stones, her face streaked with salt tears. Skeptics chalk it up to fog, to the power of suggestion, or the play of headlights on the river mist. But Charlestonians know better. Some leave violets on the seawall each year, hoping to ease her sorrow. Some say if you glimpse her veil fluttering in the wind, tragedy is close behind. The Battery remains restless, haunted by the weight of a love that was never allowed to end. What does the ghost bride still search for? Century after century, the city refuses to let her go. In the pine-shadowed hills outside Abbeville, a story persists that chills the most rational mind, the legend of the Hound of Goshen. At night, along the ruined trails and crumbling tombstones of old Goshen Hill Church, people claim to see a massive, spectral dog with fur as black as midnight, eyes burning red, and jaws capable of shattering bone. Locals say its howl echoes through the woods, freezing blood and scattering flocks. The origin seeps back to the early 1800s, when Goshen Hill was a thriving plantation community. One evening, a traveling preacher, accused falsely of theft, was chased into the churchyard by a mob. As he pleaded innocence, the mob's hounds tore at his heels, but as lightning split the sky, every dog turned and fled, tails between their legs. All but one, a monstrous black hound, remained. When the preacher vanished without a trace, whispers started. Had he summoned something to avenge his death? Since then, tales of the hound multiply. In 1897, a group of hunters fled the church ruins after being stalked by a shadow with glowing eyes. In 1965, teenagers driving the back roads crashed after swerving to avoid a giant dog that left no tracks. As recently as 2008, an old farmer, skeptical all his life, described hearing a low, guttural growl outside his window, finding claw marks gouged into the paint come morning. Scientists dismiss it as mass hysteria, wild dogs, or the result of an overactive imagination sharpened by isolation and old grief. But to locals, the hound is a living curse, an omen that justice, once twisted, will never rest. Some teens still dare each other to walk the graveyard at midnight, but not many do it twice. And when dogs in the area begin to howl for no reason, everyone remembers the Hound of Goshen walks the night, and it's searching for the guilty. What would you do if you heard its claws scraping the church steps tonight? Deep in the tangled heart of the PD region, whispers of the boo-hag make the air feel heavy, even in broad daylight. The Gullah people, descendants of enslaved Africans along the Carolina coast, have told this tale for centuries. At night, when the moon is thin, the boo-hag slips through keyholes and cracks, skinless and blood red, riding the chests of the sleeping and feeding on their breath. The legend's roots are old, carried from West African folklore and fused with the terror of midnight isolation in the Low Country's humid, creaking cabins. It was first recorded by outsiders in the late 1800s, but locals say the boo-hag haunted dreams long before that, targeting those with guilty secrets or weak souls. She wears stolen skin to move among people by day, always searching for a better disguise. Descriptions remain chillingly consistent: cold, clammy, eyes wide and hungry, a whispering voice that leaves victims drained, exhausted, and filled with dread. In 1938, a farmer's wife awoke to a crushing weight and saw the boo-hag's red face inches from her own. In 1975, a child in Kingstree claimed she was suffocating, claw marks on her chest by morning. These encounters blur the line between night terror and something far darker. Skeptics call it sleep paralysis, or psychological distress passed down through generations. Yet, in Gullah homes, brooms are left by the door, so the boo-hag is forced to stop and count each straw, buying victims precious time until dawn. The fear has never faded. It simply adapts. Children are still warned. Don't let the boo-hag ride you. In the deep hours of the night, who really knows what slithers through the cracks when you close your eyes? The ruins of Old Sheldon Church, its scorched columns rising from tangled undergrowth near Yemassee, are the stage for one of South Carolina's most sorrowful specters, the Lady in White. Locals swear that when mist rolls in from the Combahee River and Spanish moss drips heavy from the oaks, a luminous woman in a tattered white dress drifts among the broken stones, searching for something lost long ago. The legend's origins reach back to the Civil War. The church, once a proud place of worship, was burned not once, but twice, first by the British, then by Sherman's troops. During the final blaze, townsfolk say a young bride tried desperately to save her wounded groom, dragging him through smoke and chaos. When he died, she refused to leave, her grief binding her to the scorched ruins forever. Those who've seen her describe a figure radiant and sorrowful, hands reaching, face hidden by tangled hair. In 1915, a hunter claimed he saw her kneeling among the tombs, weeping over a shattered gravestone. In 1982, a group of college students fled the site after a sudden drop in temperature and the unmistakable sound of soft sobbing, though no one else was there. Even today, the area is marked by flowers left by the living for the dead. Explanations swirl. Some say it's a tale born from collective guilt, a symbol of love destroyed by war. Others, just tricks of light and fog. But locals still warn visitors to show respect. Some refuse to set foot among the ruins after dark. The Lady in White remains, bound to the ash and stone, her search for peace unfinished. If you wander too long beneath the live oaks, you might just meet her eyes and find out what she's still looking for. Not far from Murrell's Inlet, where salt marshes shimmer and the tide whispers secrets, people still fear the story of Alice Flagg and her lost ring. In life, Alice was just a girl, born to privilege at the Hermitage Plantation in the mid-1800s. But the line between love and tragedy blurred quickly. For her, she fell for a young man her family found unacceptable. And when her brother discovered their secret engagement, he tore the ring from a ribbon around her neck and cast it into the marsh. Grief drove Alice into a fever that never broke. She died young, her final wish unfulfilled. Her body was buried in a simple grave at All Saints Cemetery, marked only by the name Alice. But that's where the story grows teeth. Locals say her spirit cannot rest without the lost ring. For over a century, mourners and the curious have reported seeing a pale, mourning figure in white, gliding among the gravestones, one hand clutching at her throat as if searching for something missing. In 1916, a fisherman claimed to see her silhouette at dawn, staring into the reeds. In 1973, 2 girls on a dare fainted after seeing a woman kneeling at Alice's grave, crying over the earth. The ritual remains. People still leave rings and trinkets atop her stone, hoping for a blessing or to soothe her spirit. Skeptics insist it's a mixture of grief and superstition, a tale kept alive by tourism and romantic longing. But to many in the Low Country, Alice's restless search is a warning love denied never dies quietly. And on misty nights, when the marshes breathe and shadows move, some say you can hear her calling out, still searching for what was stolen. If you found the ring, would you dare to return it? On the banks of the Santee River, near the remnants of old plantations, locals speak in hushed tones of the ghosts of Hampton Plantation. At first glance, the mansion stands proud, white columns, ancient oaks, Spanish moss. But as the sun falls and fog rises from the marshes, the air grows thick and the past stirs from its shallow grave. The story's roots reach back to the late 1700s, when the Rutledge family ruled Hampton. The most famous tale centers on Eliza Lucas Pinckney Rutledge, a matriarch renowned for her stubbornness and pride. Legend holds that after her death, her spirit could not leave bound to the house by family secrets and unfinished business. By the late 1800s, new owners and workers began reporting strange phenomena: icy drafts in closed rooms, the sound of silk skirts sweeping down empty halls, the scent of old perfume blooming suddenly in the night. Eyewitnesses have seen figures in colonial dress pacing the upper balcony, a woman's voice reciting prayers long after midnight, and most unsettling windows fogged from the inside, handprints pressed against the glass. In 1935, a groundskeeper claimed he was chased from the property by a gray-haired woman glaring from the front steps. In 2004, a family visiting at dusk fled after seeing a group of translucent figures dancing beneath the oaks, vanishing as they approached. Skeptics point to old wood settling, temperature drops, and the suggestive power of a storied plantation. Still, the legends persist, fueling ghost tours and candlelit vigils every October. Some say Hampton is cursed, others simply haunted by grief and ambition that never faded. Walk its grounds at dusk, and you might feel history's hand on your shoulder, cold as the river mist. The house stands, but who, if anyone, ever truly left? On stormy nights in Columbia, a different kind of warning echoes through the streets, the tale of the Third Eye Man. His presence haunts the sprawling tunnels beneath the University of South Carolina, where brick corridors twist like veins below the campus. Since the 1942nd, reports surface of a figure lurking in the steam and darkness. Tall, cloaked, his face hidden but for a third, lidless eye burning in his forehead. The legend began one rainy evening in 1949. Two university police officers patrolling near the old power plant spotted a strange man rooting through garbage. When they challenged him, he turned, revealing a horrific, luminous third eye. The officers fled, and the story bled into student lore. Over the decades, others claimed to see a gaunt man in gray darting between shadows, sometimes carrying a shovel, sometimes hissing threats. Descriptions match. The Third Eye Man moves silently, always near the service tunnels, vanishing as quickly as he appears. In 1967, 3 fraternity brothers dared each other to break into the tunnels. Only 2 returned, white with terror, babbling about the eye that saw through walls. In 1981, a maintenance worker refused to enter the lower passages after hearing footsteps and seeing a flicker of unnatural light. Skeptics call it a product of college imagination, urban legend fueled by dares, darkness, and too many late-night stories. But some staff keep the tunnel entrances locked tight, just in case. To this day, warnings circulate among freshmen. Avoid the tunnels after dark, and if you see a figure with a third eye, run. Whether he's a cautionary tale or a thing born of Columbia's hidden depths, the Third Eye Man remains watching, waiting, and maybe seeing more than he should. Among the sand dunes of Hilton Head Island, when the fog creeps in from the Atlantic and the moon hides behind clouds, old-timers warn of the Blue Lady of Baynard Mausoleum. She is said to drift among the gravestones, wrapped in a gown that glows with an unearthly blue light. Her face a mask of sorrow and longing, her hands forever reaching for what cannot be touched. The legend dates back to the early 1800s, centered on the Baynard family estate. The story says that young Caroline Baynard fell hopelessly in love with a sea captain who promised to return, but storms shattered that promise, and the captain was lost at sea. Heartbroken, Caroline visited his empty grave night after night, her blue dress soaked with tears. She died young, her grief becoming part of the island's marrow. Soon after, visitors began to report the apparition, a blue glowing woman gliding among the tombs, searching, calling out the captain's name against the wind. Accounts remain eerily consistent. In 1894, a caretaker swore he saw the Blue Lady dissolve into mist at sunrise. In 1958, a pair of children described a cold blue light floating over the mausoleum, their hair standing on end. As recently as 2017, a local couple claims their car stalled by the graveyard as a blue shape moved between the headstones, disappearing the moment they turned away. Skeptics call it an illusion of moonlight and salt spray, or tricks played by tired minds. But for Hilton Head residents, the Blue Lady is more than just a ghost. She's a memory of love drowned by fate. Each year, flowers appear at the mausoleum, left by unseen hands. Some believe her presence is a warning. Don't make promises the ocean can break. If you stand among the graves and the blue mist curls at your feet, listen, Caroline Baynard's sorrow may not be finished with you yet. On the lonely outskirts of Sumter, among tangled woods and empty crossroads, the story of the Poinsett Bridge Phantom endures a legend older than the bridge itself. Built in 1820, Poinsett Bridge is the state's oldest span, a stone arch over Little Gap Creek. At night, its Gothic stones seem to trap darkness, and for generations, travelers have whispered of something or someone waiting beneath the arch. The tale's roots sink into tragedy. Early records speak of a stonemason who died during construction, crushed beneath collapsing rock. Locals say he was buried nearby, his work unfinished, his spirit restless. Soon after, eerie blue lights began appearing beneath the bridge, followed by chilling screams echoing over the water on moonless nights. Witnesses describe a flickering specter, a tall, gaunt man in work clothes, face twisted with pain, sometimes carrying a lantern, sometimes shrouded in mist. In 1912, a pair of lovers reported seeing the ghostly mason step from the shadows, his lantern's light flickering even as their own torches failed. In 1995, a photographer claimed a freezing hand grabbed his arm while he snapped pictures of the stonework, though no one else was there. Skeptics dismiss it as headlights, animal calls, or the product of isolation and old stone echoing sound. Yet, every year, ghost hunters and thrill seekers flock to Poinsett Bridge, hoping for a glimpse or a chill that can't be explained. Some say the air beneath the arch never warms, no matter the season, and flowers left for the phantom wilt before dawn. Cross the bridge at midnight and you might feel the weight of unfinished work, the sense that some debts and some souls are never truly laid to rest. Where the black waters of Lake Marion meet the tangled wilds near Santee, fishermen and boaters still speak in uneasy tones about the catfish man of the Congaree. He's less a creature of flesh and more a warning carved out by fear, an ancient being said to dwell in the depths, half man, half monster, with eyes like polished stones and skin as rough and mottled as the riverbed. Stories of the catfish man surfaced first among indigenous tribes, who warned early settlers not to linger by the water after sunset. By the 1,930 seconds, the legend grew teeth. Men returning from night fishing told of seeing a hulking figure slither from the mud, dragging broken nets, scales gleaming in the moonlight. Some claimed it spoke with a rasping, gurgling voice, others that it simply watched from the shadows, never blinking. Descriptions are disturbingly consistent. 7 feet tall, with long arms ending in webbed fingers, gills fluttering at the throat, and a stench of stagnant water. In 1942, a farmer lost 2 goats near the lake, swearing he saw them, snatched by a giant with eyes like lanterns. In 1988, a pair of teenagers found deep gouges along their aluminum boat as if something had scraped it from below. Skeptics say it's snapping turtles, oversized catfish, or just fear of the unknown. But some elders believe the catfish man is nature's spirit, punishing those who take too much from the river or dare to pollute its waters. Every so often, warnings resurface. Leave an offering at the water's edge or risk drawing his attention. Even now, on still nights, bubbles break the surface of Lake Marion without cause, and the wise keep their distance, watching for eyes that shouldn't be there, just above the waterline.